How the war on communism built the global drug trade history teaches that governments fight crime. They pass laws, build prisons, declare wars against it. But history rarely asks a more disturbing question. What happens when governments decide that crime is useful? Not useful by accident. Not useful temporarily. Useful by design. This is not a story about corruption at the edges of power. It is a story about strategy at its center. Because one of the most destructive drug networks in modern history was not created by criminals alone. It was enabled, protected, and expanded by the very institutions sworn to stop it. To understand how this happened, we must begin with fear. In 1945, the world emerged from war exhausted but alert. Empires had fallen, new powers had risen, and a new enemy had been named: communism. To Western governments, especially the United States, communism was not merely an ideology. It was an infection. It spread quietly. It recruited the poor. It undermined loyalty. And it did not need armies to win. The fear was not invasion. The fear was infiltration. The United States responded by building something unprecedented: a permanent intelligence apparatus, the Central Intelligence Agency. Its mission was not law enforcement. It was not justice. It was prevention. Prevention of ideological collapse by any means necessary. And when survival becomes the goal, morality becomes flexible. In post-war Europe, one problem stood above all others: Italy. Italy had the largest communist party in Western Europe. Millions supported it. Unions leaned left. Elections were uncertain. If Italy fell, NATO's southern flank would collapse. The CIA needed allies on the ground, and it found them, not in parliament, but in the underworld. The Sicilian Mafia had survived fascism, war, and occupation. It controlled ports, dock workers, transportation routes. It despised communists, not for ideology, but for control. The CIA saw opportunity. In exchange for protection, legitimacy, and silence, the Mafia would disrupt leftist unions, intimidate voters, and secure supply lines. Operation Underworld formalized the relationship. Criminals became assets, not informants, partners. This alliance did not end in Italy. It expanded. In France, the Corsican underworld controlled the docks of Marseille. Marseille became the nerve center of global heroin production. Morphine base flowed from Turkey. Labs refined it in France. Distribution reached the United States. Law enforcement looked away. Intelligence agencies interfered. Why? Because Corsican gangs were violently anti-communist. They broke strikes, crushed unions, secured ports. Heroin became collateral. The pattern was now established. If criminals opposed communism, their crimes became secondary. This logic followed the Cold War across continents. In Southeast Asia, the same equation appeared again. The Golden Triangle, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, remote terrain, weak governments, strong warlords, the CIA armed local militias to fight communist insurgents. These militias financed themselves through opium. The CIA knew and tolerated it. Air America, an agency-linked airline, transported supplies into the region, sometimes weapons, sometimes opium. The warlords became allies. The drug trade expanded. Back home, heroin flooded American cities. Addiction surged in poor neighborhoods. Crime escalated. Communities fractured. Officially, the government declared a war on drugs. Unofficially, it had already fought a war with drugs and used them. This contradiction did not remain hidden forever. Journalists investigated. Congress held hearings. Documents were declassified. Patterns emerged. Drugs moved where intelligence operations moved. Protection followed strategic usefulness. When criminals stopped being useful, they were exposed. When they were useful, they were invisible. The CIA did not invent drug trafficking, but it professionalized its protection. It integrated crime into geopolitics. This was not conspiracy, it was doctrine. In a world divided between ideologies, morality became negotiable. The consequences were not abstract, they were human. Entire neighborhoods collapsed under addiction. Trust in institutions eroded. Cynicism replaced belief. Governments spoke of law and order while quietly partnering with disorder. The Cold War eventually ended. The Soviet Union collapsed, but the networks remained. Drug routes persisted. Criminal syndicates evolved. State secrecy survived. Because once power learns it can outsource violence and vice, it rarely forgets. History prefers clean endings, victory, defeat, justice. But real systems end differently. They normalize. The CIA-Mafia alliance did not end with arrests or apologies. It ended by becoming unnecessary. Communism faded. The criminals stayed. This is not a story about evil individuals. It is a story about structures, about what happens when governments decide that some crimes are acceptable as long as they serve a higher goal. Because once crime becomes policy, the damage is no longer accidental. It is planned. Final line, measured quiet. The war on drugs was never meant to be won. It was meant to be managed. And management is easier when the crime already belongs to the state. For next documentary, when governments learn they can rule through criminals, the criminals are never the most dangerous part.